Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia.
What transgenderism is, at the end of the day, it is a mental health disorder, right? Gender euphoria, very real thing. And the idea that this is cool is egregious on a number of levels. In particular, it's because, have you met a transgender person who is legitimately happy, who is mentally healthy all the time? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. I have people in my family who are transgender. I have a close personal friend who is transgender, and I know for a fact that there is some real mental trauma that goes on in their heads, in their lives every single day, that this is not some cool thing that they're just doing, that this is a real difficulty, a real struggle, and that they are hurting in that. And I don't know what to do to help them. I don't. What I do know is that reaffirming whatever it is that a transgender person feels is necessary to make them feel better. Just blindly reaffirming that is not a solution, okay? It makes things worse when you just blindly reaffirm them. And all of these decisions that we're seeing time and time again and becoming more and more popular now, whether it's hormone therapy, whether it's surgery, right? Whether it's bending over backwards to restructure our entire society to, not to pander, but to appease a portion of the population that is minute at best. I think homosexuals make up 3% of the overall population of the United States. Transgender people make up like 0.7% of the United States. There are, and yet we are seeing representation after representation of them in media and in movies, right, in TV shows and music. We're seeing legislation being passed to support them, right? Transgender bathroom or forcing schools, forcing businesses to allow transgender people into the bathroom that pertains to the gender that they identify as, right? A minute portion of the population, and society is being reworked to accommodate them. Why? I'm a Catholic. There are a lot more Catholics in this country than there are transgender people. How much representation do we see in movies and music? How many legislators are out there trying to pass laws that force schools to start off, public schools to start off the day with an opening prayer or a hymn? None. And that's insane. Right? But for transgenderism, apparently it's something that's fundamental and important. Apparently that doing that is going to save lives, we're told, right? Transgender people, let me tell you, they have a suicidality rate of 41%. That is higher than African-American slaves prior to Civil War in this country. Okay, the only other group in modern history that had a suicidality rate that high were Jews during the Holocaust. Anybody who would tell you, right, that if we just stop bullying transgender people, when I say bully, I mean if we just stop misgendering transgender people, right? If we just let them use the bathrooms and let them use the locker rooms and let them expose themselves to children, right? Small children, like we saw in the massage parlor where a guy whipped his dick out in front of a mom and her like 7-year-old girl, right? If we just let them do that, right, we will be saving lives. You are a moral idiot if you suggest that. A moral idiot and an intellectual coward, okay? Period. The thing that gets me about this more than anything, right, is we're seeing it more and more, especially, like I said, with the massage parlor, right? Guy walked into the women's locker room, right? Whipped his dick out right in front of that little girl and her mom. If a grown man in a trench coat were to go up to a mom and her little kid in a park, right, and whip open his trench coat, and he was naked underneath, right? That man would be arrested, he'd be prosecuted, he'd be called a monster, and rightfully so. But if he does it in a locker room at a massage parlor and he identifies as being a woman, that's totally fine, right? That's totally fine, because morality, as it turns out, is location-based, right? Right? If you do this thing here, it's bad. If you do this thing in this room, right, in this specific location, it's totally okay. right? Morality, location-based. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? Right? Is rape only bad so long as it's not happening in this specific building? Is murder not bad? Is murder bad only so long as it's happening outside of a specific location? No! Things are objectively good and objectively bad, and exposing yourself to kids is objectively bad. I don't care if you're a transgender. I don't care if you're straight. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care. All right, children need to be protected, first and foremost. But back to the matter of transgenderism and the idea that if you just reaffirm somebody that you'll be saving their life. No, you will not. I'm going to share something with you here. I went through a particularly bad time in high school. And I know everybody said, oh, high school sucks. You know, we all went through a bad time. It's a little bit different than that for me. I was institutionalized in a mental health facility twice before I was even 18 for clinical depression and anxiety. I had a phobia of school. You know, whenever I'd go in there, I'd just be having anxiety attacks, panic attacks, felt like ants were crawling under my damn skin. You know, it was always consumed that people were judging me or watching me or ridiculing me or this or that. I ended up dropping out junior year. I weighed 313 pounds. I walked away from my faith. I walked away from my family. I shut the world out and just caved in on myself. And yeah, I was able to come back from that. But let me ask you, do you think that if people were to tell me, Josh, if eating your feelings away, if eating that junk food makes you feel better, do it, right? Do you think if people were to tell me, Josh, if walking away from your family and the people that care about you makes you feel good right now, do it. If walking out on God makes you feel better, do it, right? If closing in on yourself makes you feel better, do it. Do you think if people reaffirmed me and the decisions that I was making to try and combat the horrible thing that was happening to me, right? If people reaffirmed those specific decisions, that would somehow fix my life, that I would be here today? No, I'd be dead, or far worse. I don't know, right? And yet, we're told that if a transgender person wants to have experimental hormone therapy, right? If that makes them feel better, do it. If they want to have gender reassignment surgery, which is if they want to be castrated or have their breast removed, and it makes them feel better, do it, right? If they want to go into the locker room or the bathroom of the gender that they identify as, do it, right? We're told all these things, that if we just reaffirm those decisions, that somehow that's being polite. And it comes from a misplaced sense of self-righteousness, and it is misplaced. Because let me tell you, if you reaffirm, I don't care if it's a transgender person, if you reaffirm anybody who is mentally ill in radical decisions that are going to permanently and negatively impact their life, as we have seen time and time again play out, right? These people that have gender reassignment surgery, right? Guess what? The suicidality rate doesn't go down if you have gender reassignment surgery. The stats are out on that, right? Most studies show it having no effect, and the studies that do show an effect show suicidality dropping from about 41% to about 39% in a couple of those studies, okay? And yet we're told, again, just be polite, just be a good person, right? But that is a misplaced sense of self-righteousness, right? Because reaffirming somebody in those decisions, right, that doesn't make you a good person. It makes you a coward, because it takes real love, real care of your fellow man. It takes real strength to sit down and be honest with somebody, to be honest with them that this is not going to help. Don't do this. You have a choice. You don't need to do this. It isn't going to save you. Offering alternatives, and not just telling people what they want to hear and letting them continue to go on a dark and lonely and painful path. That takes real strength. That takes real decency. That takes real courage, and that takes real love. So to all you panderers out there, yeah, any coward can be an enabler. Any coward can just stand by and watch somebody destroy their life. It takes a real courageous person with real morals and real decency who actually cares about the other person to stand up and to not tell them what they want to hear, but tell them what they need to hear, to be honest with them and not blindly support any and every decision they make. To be honest about the costs and to be honest about the problem. Right? The first step to solving any problem is admitting that there is one. The second step is being honest about what the problem itself is. Transgenderism is a mental health disorder. And we shouldn't stop fighting. We shouldn't stop trying to find some real solutions to that, some real treatments to that work and are effective. But what's being advocated for now isn't a solution. And we know, the stats are out on that they do not work in the long run. And they do have real costs, right? There's no coming back from being castrated. There's no coming back from having your breasts removed. And there are deep psychological costs affiliated with those decisions, right? Anybody who tells you that it's no big deal to be castrated doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, right? Amputee victims, if you lose an arm, you lose a leg, there's some deep psychological trauma that comes from losing something like that. You think that you can just have your genitals removed or altered or replaced and that isn't going to impact you psychologically? You're a fool if you believe that. And you're a coward if you encourage somebody else to go along with that without thinking it through. And you're a coward if you encourage it without thinking through whether this is really what's best for them. I'm so sick and damn tired of that. We have to be polite, right? We have to affirm. We have to just go along with it all. The hell we do. The hell we do. When did it become such a bad thing to be honest? When did it become such a bad thing to not be polite? It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. No, I would never force a transgender person to stop doing what they're doing. But I am, again, not for the mainstreaming of it. I am not for the teaching of it to our children by any means whatsoever, because kids need to know which way is up and which way is down. And if you tell them up is whichever way you choose it to be, down is whichever way you choose it to be, they are going to be lost. Meaning, if your 4-year-old comes to you and says, "Daddy, I'm a girl," and you don't correct him and say, "No, son, you're a boy, go on out and keep playing," but rather tell him, "All right, you choose to be a girl, that's what you are," right? Up isn't up, down isn't down, it's whichever you decide, right? For starters, you're a failure and you're a coward as a parent, okay? Second of all, you're gonna end up screwing that kid up. You're gonna confuse him, and he's gonna end up hating you for it in the long run. And he has every right to. This isn't anything that should be taught to our kids. It isn't anything that should be mainstreamed to children. It isn't anything that should be mainstreamed, period. In movies and TV and music, definitely not in legislation, absolutely not in the public school system. And yet that is what we are seeing. And it's going to take good people standing up and standing with reality, standing with biology, standing in the truth to make it stop.